There's one EV that a lot of Aussies have been waiting for, and this is it. It's the Tesla Model Y. It's effectively an SUV version of Australia's favourite electric car, the Model 3 sedan. So, does the Model Y live up to the hype, and has it been worth the wait? Just like the Model 3, the Model Y is available in 3 flavours: entry-level rear-wheel drive, mid-grade long-range, and go-fast performance. It's the base model we're testing here, although with the price tag kicking off at $72,300 plus on-road costs, it's not the sort of thing that's about to tempt people out of a petrol-powered Hyundai or Nissan SUV. Instead, the Model Y will compete with other electric SUVs such as the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and Kia EV6, as well as some luxury brands including BMW and Audi. Oddly though, the Model Y's biggest competition could come from within in the form of the Tesla Model 3 that has dominated EV sales in Australia. While its price tag means it's not eligible for EV rebates in most parts of Australia, it still sits in a sweet spot of the market. Like all Teslas, the Model Y is powered purely by electricity, so you're not going to find a whole lot under there. Now, most of them have 2 electric motors for all-wheel drive, so you get one up front, one in the rear, but this one's the rear-wheel drive, so it's only got a single motor up the back. Again, you're not going to spot anything when you pop the boot. Now, Tesla doesn't talk a whole lot about power outputs, but we've done some digging and learnt that this one makes 194 kilowatts, 340 newton meters, none too shabby at all, but it's not light at almost 1.9 tonnes. The Model Y has plenty of the DNA from the Model 3, that sort of jelly bean type look, although it's not quite as sporty. It in some ways almost looks a bit daggier, and you can blame that on height. It's actually about 18 centimetres taller than a Model 3, 5 centimetres longer and about 7 centimetres wider, but interestingly the width doesn't go into the cabin at all. It's all about the stance. So the wheel arches, for example, you've got more width in here. It's about trying to chunky up that look. Not that it has entirely worked. In terms of wheels, you're looking at 19-inch alloy wheels, but what you've got here are not alloys. You're actually looking at plastic wheel covers. They've been designed to improve aerodynamic efficiency, therefore improve how far the car can travel on a single charge. But if you don't like them, you can clip them off and run with the alloys instead. Anyone who's been in a Tesla Model 3 will feel right at home in the Model Y. It's pretty much the same layout. You've got exactly the same minimalist dashboard, the same center console, exactly the same 15-inch touchscreen, and the same front seats, although these seats are perched a fair bit higher in the Model Y. Without that screen, things would get pretty sparse inside. It really lifts the interior and is the first major sign that it's tech calling the shots in the Model Y rather than plush materials and intricate detailing. Sure, the fake leather is okay, the strip of wood elegant enough, and the finish is generally decent quality, but it's no Mercedes-Benz or BMW. Then again, the screen smashes the competition for tech. It does all the basics. You've got radio, navigation, entertainment, a lot. It does step the entertainment up a notch, maybe 2 or 3 notches. You've got all sorts of things in here. You want to watch movies? Not a problem. Log in your Netflix account. Arcade games, so pull over by the side of the road when you're bored, and there's all sorts of games built into the screen. Even some things to keep the kids giggling. Plus this thing does some things that ordinary car makers just would not think of. But you do have to know your way around this screen. It controls pretty much everything in the car. You can tailor things like the lights, for example, how long you want them to stay on when you get out of the car. You adjust the locks, you adjust the steering wheel, the mirrors, you open the glove box from here, you open the boot and the bonnet from here. So it's got everything built into that screen, so it pays to know your way around it. In the rear, the Y is very different to the Model 3, and it really comes down to the height of the car, that extra 18 centimetres. So I've still got the flat floor, loads of foot space, even more actually under the front seats because they're so much higher. Fair bit of leg room, so again, good space in the back, and loads of headroom. I mean, I'm sitting up straight here and can only just start to touch the roof. Now throw in that glass roof and you get this big sense of openness. It's a pretty special place. And the boot is huge. It's got a nice big opening so you can get bikes, whatever else you want to throw in there. A fairly sizable space as is, but you can also build on that. A really, really deep section here, which you can throw bags and so on into, and nice deep binnacles either side. So again, for storing other items and so on. If you want, you can increase that space. Right here, right now, we've got 854 litres. You can more than double that by folding the back seats, either the centre, either side, or the whole shebang. And if that's not enough, there is even more storage under the bonnet. Now, Tesla likes to call this the frunk or the front trunk. Aussies may be more comfortable with the fruit. Either way, you've got 117 litres under here, which is really handy for charging cables or getting valuables out of the way. But that is absolutely enough of the details. Let's hit the road, see how the Model Y drives. You don't have to spend long behind the wheel of the Model Y to realise it's more about pampering the driver than the passengers. The suspension's quite taut, so you certainly feel the bumps, and the steering is super direct. So any little touch and it really reacts quite sharply. It lunges towards a corner. Now that does take some adjustment, but at the same time it succeeds in making you part of the experience. It's not exactly sluggish either, although fun fact, this is actually the slowest Tesla that's ever been unleashed on Australia. But it is worth keeping that in perspective. You see, the power and torque figures I touched on earlier, they're about the same as your average hot hatch, so a fair bit of punch. Claim 0 to 100 time, you're looking at 6.9 seconds. Now, we've tested it, we found it was more like sort of 7.1, 7.2, but that's still brisk for what is an entry-level prestige SUV. One of the big appeals of any Tesla is access to one of the best EV charging networks in the country. Sure, other generic charging networks are growing, but the Model Y can use all of those as well. It means you've basically got twice as many places to charge as other EVs. As for how much electricity you'll get into it, if you're only charging from a home power point, then you're looking at about a day for a full charge. Throw a wallbox into the equation, and that reduces to just 5.5 hours. Or you can charge when you're on the run, which brings in a whole bunch of other factors, such as what charger you're using, the ambient temperature, what sort of driving you've been doing. But in the right conditions, the Model Y can add a couple of 100 kilometres of range in 15 or 20 minutes. And it's the latest V3 Superchargers that'll give you the quickest charge. And this is one of the first in Australia. Not quite as quick as petrol, but none too shabby. Now, I touched on it earlier, the steering, it is really, really direct. So it's only about 2 turns lock to lock. So, I mean, really, you only got to do the tiniest little amount and suddenly it's really darting all over the place. So, it does take, you've got to sort of adjust the way you're delivering those steering inputs. You can't just feed on a whole bunch of lock. So you've got to finesse it a little bit more, but it reacts, it does a decent job, and it's certainly sporty in its demeanour. It does help that it's got pretty good tyres. You've got 19-inch Hankooks underneath, and they hang on pretty nicely, so that adds to the whole sporty flavour. It helps that it's got a low centre of gravity. The battery pack in the floor keeps that weight nice and low, and it's all pretty well behaved and certainly fun in the way it goes about its business. But it's clearly been set up more for driver engagement, which sort of works with the whole tech fun flavour of the car. You'll also hear a lot more of the suspension going about its business, a bit of banging and booming carrying on, and part of that is due to the makeup of the car. Keep in mind this is an SUV, so unlike the sedan, the Model 3, where you've got a boot with metal and glass and so on, shielding that noise from you, it can make its way a lot more easily to the front of the car, straight into your ears. So you just hear a bit more of it. Again, it's no biggie, but it is more noticeable. But not all is perfect, and the Model Y's suspension is towards the firmer side of the ledger. It means you'll feel every ripple in the road. It doesn't jar over big bumps, but you will feel them. And it's more of an issue on country roads with multiple bumps, at which point you'll faithfully feel every one of them. Now, anyone who's driven a Tesla Model 3 will be used to some of that firmness, but there's one big difference with this car, the seating position. You're about 140 millimetres higher, so any sideways movement of the body is going to result in more movement of your chest and head. Basically, you notice the bumps more. There's loads of DNA from the Tesla Model 3 in the Model Y, and that in itself will be enough for many to make the leap into the newcomer. It's not perfect, the ride is firm, and it only comes with a 4-year warranty. But the tech is awesome, the driving experience is fun, and the way the whole electric drivetrain works and integrates into the charging network is a step above rivals. Now we'll be doing a lot more with the Model Y over coming months, including getting behind the wheel of the dual motor performance model and taking this one for a few longer trips. So there's heaps more to come, and you'll find it all right here at Car Sales.